What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and the Jets pulled off a trade to continue to add to their secondary, right? I think at this point, you can say that Aaron Glenn and company are making a concerted effort to figure out who's going to be the future core here after having a very underwhelming and poor start to the season. But the Jets and Titans pull off a trade here for a fifth round pick just a year ago in the 2024 draft to acquire Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the cornerback out of Florida. And by the way, don't forget, it seems like we have an affinity potentially with players coming out of the Florida program. They do tend to develop a lot of talent and have some very athletic and ridiculous freaks out there. But 5'10", 194 pounds is what we're getting to add to his cornerback room as someone that could hold up on the boundary where he's mostly played, but also has been able to moonlight in the slot and could be used in a variety of other roles when it comes to run coverage, where he seems to be at his best. Which is an interesting take here, right? Now, we essentially get this deal done with a flip swap of late round draft picks. We pick up Jarvis Brownlee Jr., we give the Titans a seventh rounder in the 2026 draft, and the Titans give us a sixth rounder in the 2026 draft. One of the things I find fascinating, he's, for one, been very healthy, right? 19 games over 2 seasons, just missed his first game with an ankle injury a week ago. But it's his familiarity with our defensive pass game coordinator slash quarterback coach, Chris Harris. One, makes a ton of sense, right? You're going to go and try to find the connections and guys that might be available to you. But there's as many red flags as potential upside with a player like this, right? You take a look at the heavy penalties that he suffered between defensive pass interference and holding. I mean, in just week one, he had three. But on the flip side of that, you take a look at what he was able to do at Florida, which spoke to him being potentially a better man coverage player, which we know we tend to run a lot more within this Aaron Glenn system. Hasn't necessarily been the case for him so far in the pros, but he can get it done, right? A completion rate of 59.5% allowed at one point with a pass rating of 86.7% when targeted. Again, hasn't necessarily worked out that way in the pros for him, but he hasn't been egregious, I would say, right? It doesn't look the same as what you would compare up against Brandon Stevens, right? Which I would say is probably going to be the barometer on the very low end of the scale when you're talking about cornerbacks potentially entering this room. But why would Chris Harris, I'm assuming, give his sign off and tell AG it's a solid move? Well, at one point during his rookie season, it did look like he was going to be the future at the quarterback position for at least one spot on the boundary for the Titans. Penalties and coverage aside, he was a guy that was getting the job done. 75 tackles, 9 pass deflections, a tackle for loss, an interception, and a fumble recovery. He also was fifth in terms of rookies when it came to passes defense, and he led our rookie DBs with 7 tackles for loss. And I think this is where you could find a easy role for him, right? Even if you don't place him as a boundary quarterback, this is a guy that could play kind of that Alabama star role, if you will, where you're really moonlighting him as a undersized linebacker. And that fits in with the aesthetic of what we've seen from the current linebackers we have. But we've been having fits with our run coverage, or at least our run defense, I should say specifically. And this is a guy that can answer that, right? Whether it is Brandon Stevens coming out, whether it is looking at Michael Carter II and how uneven he's been to start the season, all this clearly says to me is that we aren't happy with what's happening in the cornerback room. You take a look at Sauce Gardner still looking like a top 5, top 10 guy. Again, that's going to be the case with him out on his worst day, but definitely a little bit of a slip. And when you look at the other side of the field, Brandon Stevens, he is as advertised coming from the Ravens, and that's not a great thing. All of the same issues have been reminiscent of what the Ravens fans have been trying to tell us. And even though he had a pretty strong training camp in the last couple weeks there, maybe to a month leading into the season, it seems like he's fallen back into bad habits. So you need to figure out a way to address and move on from that situation there. And then it doesn't help that Michael Carter II is struggling again, right? And who knows? Maybe there's an injury he's trying to play through or something like that. But again, from DK Metcalf being able to put a move on him and open up big plays to everybody else that we faced since, he has not looked like the top tier guy that we paid just a couple of years ago. And I don't think you can place it all at the heels of adjusting to a new scheme and stuff. Seems to be a lot of coverage, communication issues, etc., just across the board, but a severe lack in fundamentals at the very least. So if you're going to bring somebody in, let them have a hallmark, right? A guy that's either elite in coverage or elite in run defense, and you can work around that as you rebuild things. But those are your top three guys. When you talk about Quantez Stiggers, who's an unknown, but at least brings a special teams value, and then there's Arie Thomas, who at least look like a NFL cornerback, you're going to want to make sure that you can have some answers, because it looks like we will need somewhat of a total rehaul once again when we talk about infusing talent once we can get to the offseason. But as AG put, it's very early, 14 games still left to play. Let's see what happens, but they're hoping that he can be part of the answer here. So let me know what you guys think about the trade. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.